continue Kilroy's Key 3, New to Me, 2022. This time, we're going back in time to the ancients. Now, what is Kilroy's Key 3? Well, I'll put a link to the introduction to this series, but basically I'm picking the top 3 games in my collection. I has to be in my collection, that's a limitation, but I have a pretty big collection, so maybe not so much of a limitation, that exemplify and are the best for my point of view. Now, what's my point of view? Well, that's presentation, operation, and value. The presentations, the counters, the map, the art, all the things that add to or the components, everything that adds to the presentation of it. The operation is gameplay, the rules, and the like, and the clarity and the player aids. And then the value is, simulation. How well does it simulate? How fun is it to play? How easy is it to play? Is it replayable? Those kind of things all factor in there. So I'm doing New to Me, so that means I've either acquired it and played it, or just played it for the first time in 2022. I am a little bit behind on a few games, so sometimes I might get an older game that's new to me that year. So now we're looking at ancient. So what are we going to talk about today? This is an interesting one. There's 2 that really rise to the top, and then the third one is just that it meets the list because I didn't get into as many ancients. Plus, it was a fun game. So let's start with that one. That is Judean Hammer, Conflict of Wills Judean Hammer, which is from Catastrophe Games. And as you can see from this box, that might be familiar to you, that this is distributed by Blue Panther, which does like third-party sourcing or distributing for several smaller publishers like Hollandspiel, Catastrophe Games, White Dog Games, the Historical Game Company, I think, is one, and I'm probably missing somebody there. Anyway, I always miss somebody, but they do quite a bit for that, quite a bit for other small publishers. So we got Judean Hammer. We have The Great Battles of Julius Caesar, which is from GMT Games. This is an original, goes back to original Mark Herman and Richard Berg design when they did it first for Alexander, the Great Battles of Alexander. But the Great Battles of History is a very robust, tactical level series or system. And this is really closer to a system. There's probably more similarities than there are differences between the different games that are produced under this system. They tend to address the nuances of that period. So as this system goes forward, there might be something that's a little bit different in that period, or for the battles they're covering, whether it be mounted or phalanxes or what have you. And so they might have some different rules for them, but for the most part, the general rules on combat and trying to tear down cohesion and how you give out orders and the whole command structure, which is very, very key in this series, and that's one of the key things is simulating. Those are generally the same. There's even some differences in command as you go through errors, but that is pretty consistent. The next one, or the third one in this 3 keys, is Successors. Can't even tell what that is from here, but this is Successors. There we go. This is a reprinting of this. This has been printed several times over the years by different publishers. And this is the Phalanx version of it that came out, I like to say a couple years ago. Maybe it's been longer than that, but I just got a hold of it this year and got to the table. And this is dealing with the period right after Alexander's death. In fact, his body is part of this game, trying to get control of his body and trying to get it to its proper burial spot. And whoever controls the body gets some extra points or some legitimacy to the crown or what have you. So right after Alexander's death, and it's talking about, you know, kind of the infighting or the dividing up of Alexander's empire among his generals. And so, very interesting game. And again, been around for had several iterations, been around for a long time, but this one might be as far as production value, might be the pinnacle of what they've done as far as production value. So let's, I got to get my keys out. I got to get my chest of keys here to start thinking about what we're going to do with these. Starting out with my point of view, presentation. This one's probably a no-brainer, but let's talk about the maps first. I always kind of like to start talking about the maps or map boards or what have you first. Looking at Judean Hammer, this is your map. It's functional, it's fine. I mean, anytime you have something produced by Blue Panther, you're going to get these, paper maps. I think for some of the publishers, they actually do cloth maps as well. There might have actually been a cloth map for this one, I don't know. But the standard version is a paper map. And it's fine. It's a decent, it's a good enough size for what you do on this, because this one is going to be a game of placing cubes on the board. My bag of cubes there. So there's no counters. It's really area control, and it's very, very abstract. And it's basically kind of a card-driven game. There's going to be these cards that you have that you use to place troops or recruit or move stuff around to try to control these certain areas. And this is dealing with the Maccabean revolt in the Middle East. Which is basically, the Jewish factions kind of revolting against the current control in that region. It's an interesting game. It's the most abstract of the games I'm covering today, but still a fun experience, an interesting experience. And there's some, you can learn something about what was going on there, but again, at a very somewhat abstract and high level. But the cards are fine. The cards are typical Blue Panther production. They're good. They're solid. They're very functional. They're not super thin. So the presentation of this is a fine game for what you get. But this is the game. The map, the cards, and the cubes. And then, of course, the rules, of course. But so that's the map or presentation for Judean Hammer. Next, we're going to take a quick look at the great battles of Julius Caesar. Now, this is just one of the maps. This is in the Great Battles of Julius Caesar. It is a system, right? The Great Battles of History. So the counters are all going to look somewhat the same. In fact, I've got some that are still on the sprue here. So we'll pull one of these out here. So you're going to get the counters there that they're going to tell you this is a cohesion counter that you're going to place on here to see if someone breaks cohesion. These are the leaders and have all their range and their initiative and command ability and the like. And then you have the counters will have their cohesion, and then this system is based on the kind of unit. There's charts to compare, the kind of unit versus the kind of unit they're going up against, and then there's a combat chart, and then the leaders can affect that. So the combat system is relatively detailed. This is a tactical level game, so you are getting into the nitty gritty of how these forces are coming together on the battlefield. So movement and terrain and leader's command is very, very important. But it's in this box, this is a heck of a value for a box, because it's a thick box, and it's basically combining several games that were originally done in this series. In fact, they're listed on the back of the box here. It's combining, these are all combining, Caesar's Gallic Wars, Caesar's Civil War, and then you're getting, Roman conquest of Britannia. Some of this was in a expansion or supplement. And then you've got some battles here, Marius and Sulla, that were in other supplements as well. So a lot of content in here, and so there's multiple there's multiple scenarios, there's multiple battles, and there's going to be a map for each one of those, and these are double-sided. So, I mean, the presentation value here is very high. There's a lot of information on those counters, but there is, but once you know the system, you can decipher that and kind of know what you're looking at. Also, it's kind of part of presentation, and it kind of falls into operation, or overlaps into operation, is the player aids. There's lots of player aids. Here's your movement and cost chart. This is player aid 1. There's your clash of swords. This is where you're combining the types of units that are going up. You got your shock superiority, shock combat results, missile range, fortification. I mean, there's all kinds of, player aid for each of the players. Player aid 2, here's your cohesion, because this is all about breaking the units. You kind of break down that cohesion, and then they start retreating off the battlefield. Your command summary chart, very, very important and a key to the game. Summary of orders, line and legion command. This is all dealing with the command structure. There's your stacking charts. Again, player aid for each one of the players. And then you have your leadership checks chart, leadership casualty table. Then leaders are leading in this game. I mean, they're in front of the troops a lot of times, so they get taken off. Rally, elephant rampage, and here's your sequence of play. So quite a bit, and then there's naval battles in this as well. The Great Battles of History actually has War Galley, which just deals with triremes and naval battles, and there's actually some naval supplements. It's more of a simplified War Galley rules that are in this as well. So there's your naval charts, and then you've got there's also this is your chart that stays on the table, dealing with your route points, and which usually are an indication or a measure for victory and your game turn. And then there's also simplified rules as well in here, because Great Battles of History is a relatively complex game. And then there's a simplified version of it. Now, I tend not to play the simplified version as much, because I don't think it simplifies it that much, actually. I mean, it tweaks some of the command issues. And if I'm going to play this, I might as well invest and go all in. But, so I have done a little bit with it. Maybe I should try it a little bit more. But to me, it just gets more confusing trying to figure out what I don't need to do, or what I don't need to learn to play the game, because when I pick these up anew. So there's a lot in this box. That will probably get more to value, but the presentation is consistent with all the Great Battles of History. In fact, they tend to improve over time. Although the graphics look somewhat the same on the counters, they might change a little bit depending upon the series. So that's Great Battles of Julius Caesar, Deluxe Edition. And you can see here, this is a dual map here. You've got 2 different battles on the other side, but you'll have several of these in the box to handle all the battles. Now we get to successors, and I don't want to be too biased here, but I think you might know where I'm heading with presentation on this. But this is successors, and this is the map for successors. So you've got basically Alexander's kingdom or empire, or whatever you want to call it, at his death, this is a beautiful map. It's point to point. This is somewhat of kind of a card-driven game. There's a lot going on in this game. This is not your standard CDG, and it's not a standard area control or anything like that. This is has developed over years. There's been several iterations of it that have been developed, and this is kind of the culmination of that as far as production value. And I'm not going to get everything out, but there's the box. Everything stores nicely back in the box. It's got minis, so you've got your leaders that you can put on the board. Who doesn't like minis? I'm not a painter, so I'm fine with them the way they are, but you can paint these up as much as you want. You have stands to keep track of who's who in it. There's counters and stuff in here, but there's cards that come with the game, and the art on the cards are very nice, dealing with the leaders and the areas that you're controlling and the like. This is quite an experience. Look at these almost tarot-sized cards. Are cool and are play out through the game. As you can see, there's a very, very nice art on there, and the like. So, the production value of this is relatively high. And so, with that, I mean, starting to hand out my keys, I'm probably going to, I think who's going to get the 3 keys first. But I think for production value, the, Successors is going to get, the 3 keys. Great Battles of Julius Caesars, we're going to get 2 keys. And the Judean Hammer will get 1 key for presentation. Now let's talk about operation. Well, operation is talking about gameplay and ease of play and how everything kind of fits together and makes it more playable. Julius Caesar is a beast. The Great Battles of History is a very relatively complex game. Here's the rule book, which is 48 pages. This is just the naval rules. This is the scenario book. The scenario books are going to have rules as well in them because there's going to have special rules for each of the scenarios. It's going to tell you how to set up. There's going to be some context of it, and there's going to be some special rules for the scenario. And then, of course, this also has the simple Great Battles of History rules as well in it for each of the scenarios. So this isn't necessarily all rules, but there's some rules in this as well. So this is, out of these 3, this is probably the most complex of the games. Successors, 24 pages, is not that complex of a game. And this rule book, really lays everything out in a very colored type fashion and kind of takes you through. There's an example of play in here. Oh, that's the playbook. Sorry, the rule book is here, right here. So this has got a playbook as well to kind of take you through example of play. But here's the rule book, which is 40 pages. Sorry about that. Dual column, color, with some examples in there as well, and talking about everything. The problem with this game is it kind of suffers a little bit from its age because it's an older game that has been revised and re-implemented several times, and so it's got a little bit of 80s, maybe 70s, 80s type baggage with it that is not as streamlined, right? As far as games go, and this is not a pure war game as much as this is has other influences that are going into it. It's not your typical hex and counter type game in that regard. Judean Hammer, on the other hand, rule set is relatively simple. There's only 12 pages of rules. Of course, that's got designer notes. The examples are pretty clear, pretty open. So that's probably the simplest of these. So as far as operation, which one is easier to get into, this is kind of tough because there's just a certain level of complexity that goes with Great Battles of History that makes it a little bit harder to get into. I think the rules are fine. I think they're probably better than Successors in that regard. I think Successors has a little bit of wonkiness to it, of just going through several iterations. And I haven't compared this to the previous ones. I never owned any of the previous ones, so I don't know if they've cleared up and cleaned stuff up, or if they've just made a bigger mess over time. But so in this regard, I mean, I'm probably going to give Judean Hammer the 3 because this is just easier to get into for what you're getting into in this game. Probably going to give Great Battles of Caesar a 2. And Successors a 1 in that regard, although that's pretty close. I mean, this one I give it a 2, even though this is the most complex. They've started to get this down to what you really need to know in this game, and you just need to keep reminding yourself of what you need to know. This one was a little bit harder to get into. It just wasn't as intuitive for me, but your mileage may vary on that. That's why I do these, right? Let's make sure the keys get on there. And then we're now down to the value. So what is the value of these games? Well, one thing of value is simulation. Another part of value is fun and replayability. Hands down, Great Battles of Julius Caesar is, to me, the best simulation of these 3. This is the least abstract, the one that's really trying to get to the actual tactical battles. And there's a ton of replayability in this box based with all the different scenarios that you get in here and all the content you get in here. I mean, this is going to be a 3 for value in my book. The next one is probably going to be Successors. We'll get the 2 because of the just because of the production value. This is a beauty to get to the table, and is something that is just really, really visually appealing, and just moving those the minis on the board and trying to take over the areas and trying to get, there's even a miniature for Alexander's grave, or his body, the trying to take it to his resting place in Greece, or Macedonia. And there's one for his heir, there's a little bit of a political struggle. There's a lot of stuff going on in this game that just makes it, it's an effort to get it to the table, but once you get to the table, I think it's a very, very interesting experience. Now, sometimes people think this overstays its welcome, but there you have it. So that would leave 1 key for Judean Hammer. So there is replayability there, but it's a relatively simple game. In fact, I've probably played this game more than I've played these other 2 this year. But it's more of a game, and so it's not something that I just want to keep coming back to. If I feel like I want to get a simple, little bit of a lightweight game to get to the table and go against somebody really quick, then I would do that. These other ones are more of an effort. This one is better multiplayer. This is a 2-player, tactical recreation of battles, and then Judean Hammer is just more of a game effect. So with that, how do we come out? Who's the top of the key 3? I mean, when I say key 3, all 3 of these are top games that were new to me in 2022 for Ancients. But so Successors gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 keys. Judean Hammer gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 keys. And the Great Battles of Julius Caesar gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 keys. Great Battles of Julius Caesar wins out over the Successors and Judean Hammer in this New to Me 2022 Ancients. So, love to know your thoughts on this. What's your point of view on these 3 games, or on what were new to you for 2022 in the Ancients, or whether you just want to talk about Ancients in 2022? I'm up for it. Love to know your thoughts. Love to know your point of view. Let me know what you think. Thanks for stopping by. The view from my gaming headquarters. Looks like we're getting a little bit of snow on this day. Take care out there. Here's a better view. Just a little bit of snow. Happy holidays. Thanks for watching.